3 days before my wedding, a stranger called to RSVP. He swore we went to high school together. I was on my lunch break at the hospital, still in scrubs, staring at a list that was supposed to be final weeks ago. There's a pattern people don't talk about because it sounds petty until it isn't. When someone feels erased by your new chapter, they don't argue with your happiness directly. They smudge the edges. They treat a milestone like a stage that owes them time. He isn't the ex. He's the archetype of unfinished business. Too proud to ask for a seat, too restless to sit with himself. If you've met that type, you know, they'd rather be a problem than be irrelevant. I kept our wedding tight. 80 people, Chicago, a brick and glass venue in Logan Square we loved because it felt warm without trying. I'm a nurse. I manage chaos for a living. I built the guest list like a medication schedule. No errors, no late additions, no might swing by. Evan and I used a simple website with an access code, paper invites for relatives, and a firm RSVP date. My friends joked I ran it like a discharge plan. They weren't wrong. That afternoon, 3 more calls rolled in. A Josh, a Liam, a Trent. None of the names lived in my phone. Each sounded confident, like I should recognize them. One asked if the bar was open late. Another wanted to know dress code. The third said he'd see the crew there. You know that quiet panic when your plans are finally tidy and someone kicks dust onto them? You watch the order you built tilt, and your first instinct is to press harder, to act like nothing moved. I took a breath and asked each caller who invited them. All 3 gave the same answer. I got it from Derek. Here's the thing about boundary testing. It usually arrives dressed as logistics, not rage. Logistics, dates, addresses, a link passed along. He looks reasonable on paper. He looks like just helping. Underneath, it's self-appointment. He casts himself as a connector because control feels safer than acceptance. He can't hold the silence of not being central, so he fills it. If you've ever guarded a guest list, you understand. Every seat is a decision, and every decision is a little piece of dignity. I opened the RSVP portal on my phone, thumb shaking more from annoyance than nerves. New entries had appeared in the last hour, all from emails I didn't know, all listing the same note in them. How do you know the couple? Box. Derek says he can't wait. My chest went hot. I hadn't seen Derek in nearly 2 years. We'd ended clean by my standards. No scenes, no late-night texts, just distance and time. I had blocked him on socials the month Evan proposed because I wanted a quiet head. Apparently, quiet isn't contagious. There's always a character who believes history is a key to any door. He talks like he owns the past and rents the present. He thinks proximity earns him rights in perpetuity. He's not violent, not dramatic, just tireless. And you learn that calm isn't passive. Calm can be a gate with a lock. I closed the browser, swallowed, and dialed one person who never liked Derek from the start, because information beats outrage every time. I called Jada. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting for me to finally admit something was off. I laid out the stranger RSVPs, the shared. Derek says he can't wait. The timestamp cluster. She didn't gasp or feed the drama. Jada's a project manager. She treats feelings like data first, comfort second. Where's the leak? She asked. That's how she put it, like we were patching a pipe. There's a type who thrives on borrowed power. He doesn't build anything. He plugs into what you built and reroutes it. You tighten your list, and he opens a side door with a grin. He frames it as community, as nostalgia, as no big deal. But that move isn't about attendance. It's about authorship. If you've ever curated a moment, you know the difference. A seat is a resource. Deciding who sits there is a right you earn by doing the work. Jada had me screen share the wedding portal. We checked access logs, then the invitation file we'd emailed relatives. She asked me to search Instagram and Facebook for my invite. People love posting pretty paper, she said. I felt dumb the second I saw it. My cousin Bree had posted a story last night. My cream and terracotta invite in perfect light, and the access code clear in the frame. She tagged. So proud of my girl. The story had expired, but Jada grabbed a cached preview. There's our door, she said. And guess who viewed it in the first 5 minutes? Derek. He still follows Bree. If sabotage has a starter kit, it begins with convenience. He didn't hack anything. He didn't even lie. He used what was visible and passed it along because proximity to your day scratches the itch of being relevant again. You might feel silly for not guarding the details tighter, but don't. People who want control count on that feeling. Shame softens your spine. We don't do that. We changed the access code, added manual approval, and pushed an email to confirm guests reminding them not to share links. I called Bree. I kept my voice steady. "Hey, can you take down anything with the invite code?" She apologized so hard, I almost told her it was fine. But I didn't. I let it land. "We're locked down now," I said. "Just don't forward anything else." When I hung up, 5 new, pending, RSVPs waited in the portal, more unknown names, all with the same note about Derek. I took screenshots like evidence and saved them in a folder labeled calm. Telling Evan was the part one dreaded. He's steady until he isn't, and Derek brings out that protective edge. He called between meetings. I summarized fast, hit the beats, told him we'd patched the leak. "Do I call him?" he asked. I pictured 2 men trading old grievances on speakerphone 2 days before our vows. That's how you hand over the mic. "No," I said. "We don't give him main character time. We make a list, brief the venue, and keep our heads." Evan exhaled. "Okay, send me the names. I'll tell the door staff we're strictly list only." Sabotage tries to make you loud so it can play quiet. It tries to drag you from host to bouncer, from bride to problem solver with a clipboard. The countermove is boring. Policies, lists, approvals, calm replies. It's not glamorous, but it protects the day. I sat at my kitchen table that night and wrote a simple script for any unknown caller. "We're at capacity. If you don't have a printed invitation with your name, we can't accommodate." Then I highlighted the names I would still have to call, the ones I suspected were real people with a real friendship to Derek, who would show up because he told them they belonged. By morning the RSVP queue was quiet, but the calm felt staged, like when a patient stops, hitting the call button, and you know they're just sleeping between alarms. Evan left early to meet the DJ about the ceremony cues. I sat with coffee and dialed one of the names that looked real. Liam P. He sounded surprised but polite. "Derek said you wanted old friends there," he told me, like he was handing back a coat I'd asked him to hold. I explained the cap, the seating chart, the fact that we hadn't been in touch for years. He apologized and withdrew without fuss. That's an important detail. Not everyone tied to a boundary test is hostile. Most people step back when you give them a clear, adult sentence. There's a difference between a crowd and a chorus. A crowd shows up. A chorus carries the tune. The saboteur wants a chorus, people to confirm his story that he still belongs. He borrows their names and momentum to pose as inevitable. If you've ever lived through this, you learn to separate accidental participants from the true believers. It keeps you from swinging at shadows and burning energy you need for your actual life. I called the venue next. The coordinator, Carla, had seen everything. "We can run a hard list at the door," she said. 2 attendants with tablets, wristbands for seated guests, standing room closed. She suggested a phrasing for anyone who pushed. "For the couple's contract, we're at capacity." It takes the argument off your chest and puts it on a policy. I sent Carla the screenshots, the names, and the note about Derek. She didn't flinch. "Happens more than you think," she said. Weddings make side stories try to become the main plot. Then I got the call I had hoped wouldn't come. Trent. His tone had the lazy confidence of someone who treats rules as flexible. He said he had boys flying in and asked me to be cool. I told him, plainly, he wasn't invited. He laughed like I'd made a joke. "Derek's basically family," he said. That's the storyline. He upgrades proximity to kinship because it sounds noble out loud. I didn't argue. "If you arrive, the staff will turn you away," I said, even not loud. Silence on his end stretched. "Wow," he said finally. "Cold. Clear," I replied, and hung up. People frame boundaries as meanness to make themselves feel better about ignoring them. Don't take the bait. You aren't cold, you're precise. You aren't petty, you're protecting the shape of a day you paid for and planned. If you've ever had your name on a contract, you know that clarity is kindness to everyone else involved, vendors, guests, your own nervous system. I sent the call notes to Evan and Jada. We built a one-page brief for the wedding party, so no one improvised heroics at the door. Jada volunteered to stand near check-in for the first hour, not as a bouncer, just as a familiar face who could redirect energy. Right after lunch, the venue emailed a heads-up. They'd fielded 3 separate calls asking about extra capacity for Derek's group. Carla logged the numbers. 2 matched my list. 1 was blocked ID. Under the message was a final line that made my stomach drop without theatrics. We've also received a voicemail from Derek himself introducing a friend's table. Please confirm there is no such table. I looked at our floor plan on the screen, traced the neat circles of names I'd placed weeks ago, and felt the day tighten into focus. I emailed Carla back, confirmed there was no friend's table, and asked her to save the voicemail. Then I drafted one clean message to Derek. No heat, no story, just facts. You are not invited. Do not distribute links or promise seats. Any guests arriving under your direction will be refused by venue staff per contract. I CC'd Evan and the venue inbox, then hit send. Paper trails don't feel romantic, but they keep your day from turning into improv. There's a certain personality that believes naming something makes it real. He declares a table and expects the room to reshape. He makes logistics into leverage, calls vendors, drops confident nouns, and counts on everyone being too polite to contradict him. If you've ever built a milestone, you know this tactic. It's not about chairs. It's about authorship. The countermove is dull on purpose. Policies, lists, and the courage to be repetitive. You say the same sentence until the performance runs out of oxygen. Jada met me at the venue that afternoon. We walked the floor plan with Carla, circle by circle. We added wristbands for seated guests and turned guest book into a staff check-in. Carla suggested a soft security layer. 2 attendants at the door, the valet briefed, bartenders told not to start tabs for non-listed names. We set a code word, pineapple, to quietly alert staff if someone tried to muscle through. Nothing dramatic, all professional. I printed 2 copies of the master list and wrote a short script for the door. For the couple's contract, we're at capacity. On the train home, my phone lit up with a new number. A woman introduced herself as a longtime friend of Derek and said he felt iced out and was trying to be generous by organizing people. She used words like kind and nostalgic, like I'd missed a chance to be gracious. That's a common pivot. Turn your boundary into a character flaw. I answered with the same line we gave the venue. We're at capacity and cannot accommodate additions. No debate. She typed a long paragraph, then deleted it. The typing bubble went dark. I blocked the number and added the screenshot to my comm folder. That night I packed welcome bags for the out-of-towners and called my mom to check flower delivery times. We didn't talk about Derek. We talked about her shoes and the weather and the playlist for the drive to the salon. Adult peace isn't a feeling so much as a procedure. You don't chase quiet, you build it. If you're tempted to confront, ask what the confrontation buys you beyond adrenaline. Sometimes the adult move is refusal that doesn't need an audience. Before bed, a mutual acquaintance forwarded a group chat screenshot. Derek had set a meetup at a bar 2 blocks from the venue, 30 minutes before our ceremony. The message ended with, "Friend's table is on me." I cropped the address, sent it to Carla with one request, extra eyes at the door for that window, and put my phone on Do Not Disturb except for 5 people. The plan was set. The day would run on the names we chose. Derek replied to my email before sunrise. He wrote like a PR statement. Only trying to include people who care. You're being unnecessarily rigid. I already put down money for a pregame. It was the soft kind of pressure. Civility sharpened into leverage. I didn't answer. I forwarded it to Carla, filed it in calm, and poured coffee. Adult peace is sometimes just deleting the sentence you regret and moving on to the next task. People who fear irrelevance use generosity as costume. They don't say, "I want control." They say, "I'm helping." The move works because it leans on your public image. Kind bride, magnanimous host. If you've ever planned anything with your name on the line, you know the trap. You're asked to trade clarity for optics, to keep the room smiling while your boundaries dissolve at the edges. The antidote isn't meanness. It's policy with a human voice. Jada swung by with wristbands she'd rush-ordered and 2 clipboards. We printed the master list, and a shorter version with photos for the attendants. I called the bar 2 blocks from the venue and got the manager, a guy named Marco. I laid it out plainly. There's a group claiming a friend's table. They aren't connected to us. Please don't present it as related to our wedding. Marco didn't flinch. Got it, he said. We'll keep any meetups separate and give you a heads up if they roll out together. I saved his number and felt a little of the static in my chest clear. Rehearsal ran clean. Carla walked us through the aisle order, the cue for the music, where to stand so the photographer could see Evan's face. My dad got sentimental in a way that made me laugh instead of cry, and my aunt tried to sneak a +1 into the seating chart. I told her the same line everyone got and held eye contact. She blinked, then nodded. That's the quiet skill you build as a nurse, and as a person who's done therapy, you repeat the limit without the performance. Most people adjust when you don't give them a door. At the rehearsal dinner, a mutual posted an old photo of me and Derek with the caption, "Can't wait to celebrate these two in Chicago." The comments were full of confusion and cheer emojis. I messaged her privately, short, factual, kind, and she took it down. Then I posted a note in our wedding site updates. We're so excited to celebrate. Due to capacity, we can only admit guests listed by name at check-in. We appreciate your understanding. It wasn't a call-out. It was air traffic control. Later, in the hotel room, I set my phone to do not disturb except for the small circle, checked the dress bag one more time, and sat on the bed breathing. Tomorrow would be our day, built by the names we chose and the calm we enforced. Wedding morning ran like a protocol. Hair, makeup, breakfast I could actually eat. Evan texted a photo of his tie to confirm the color. I sent back a thumbs up and told him I'd see him at the aisle. We weren't superstitious about first looks, but we decided to keep it classic. It wasn't about luck. It was about giving the day clean edges. If you've ever protected a milestone, you know structure is a kindness. It keeps nerves from inventing jobs. At noon, Marco from the bar called. Heads up, he said. Derek's crew is here. 10 guys, 1 woman, talking like they're rolling out together at 3:30. He sounded calm, like we were discussing a delivery, not my ex's parade. I thanked him and texted Carla and Jada our window. That's the thing about attempted sabotage. It wants you reactive. It wants your hands to shake while you button your dress. The counter move is boring. You notify the people who already have jobs and then go back to yours. Carla met me at the venue door with a quick squeeze of my shoulders. The attendants had tablets, wristbands neatly fanned out, and the script printed by the check-in table. Jada stood nearby in a slate blue dress, clipboard tucked under her arm like jewelry. She didn't look like security. She looked like a friend who wouldn't let nonsense touch the edges of the day. If you've ever had that person, you know, love can be logistics. Here is a list. Guests flowed in. My aunt with the good earrings, Evan's college roommate with a baby asleep on his chest, my charge nurse laughing too loud in the best way. Twice, an unfamiliar man tried to slide past the line with a confident wave. The attendant glanced at the list, used the sentence, and held the space. No scene, just gravity. The third time, Jada said, pineapple, to the valet like they were discussing fruit, and Carla drifted over, all business. That's what boundaries look like when everyone's on script. Painless for the people who belong, friction for the ones who don't. At 3:28, Derek appeared across the street with 2 guys I recognized from screenshots. He had that loose, casual walk he used to use when he wanted a favor to feel inevitable. He stopped at the rope, smiled, and started with, "Hey." I didn't step forward. Carla did. "Per the couple's contract," she said, even and professional, "we're at capacity." He tried the friends table line. She didn't blink. "There is no such table." He asked to speak to me. Jada turned, met my eyes, and I shook my head once. Here's a quiet truth. You don't know access to people who treat access like currency. You don't have to narrate your no. I checked the time, handed my bouquet to my mom for one last fix, and lined up with the bridal party. Evan was waiting at the end of an aisle washed in late afternoon light, hands folded, face open in that way that tells you the noise outside the room has finally gone quiet. Someone texted me a photo later. Derek on the sidewalk, half turned away, security posture without the drama. But in the moment, All I heard was the music start and Carla's voice low at the door, doing the job we hired her to do. I took a breath, squared my shoulders, and walked. The ceremony felt solid, not cinematic. Evan's hand steadied when he said my name, and the room breathed with us. I heard a baby coo my mom sniff once. The DJ hit the fade like he'd done it 1,000 times. That's the thing about moments you fought to protect. They don't explode, they land. You don't need fireworks. You need the absence of interruption. If you've ever braced for chaos and it doesn't come, you learn a new kind of relief. Cocktail hour tested the system. Twice, the attendants flagged unfamiliar names trying to ride in on. "I'm with the groom." The line held. Carla used the sentence. Jada redirected a confused cousin with a smile and a wristband. This is where saboteurs run out of story. Without an audience, their momentum dies on the sidewalk. People who thrive on access need witnesses. They need the sighs and the shrugs. When you cut off the stage, the performance shrinks to size. If you've ever worked a code in a hospital, you know, protocols beat charisma every time. We planned photos on the street, but rerouted to the rooftop when Marco texted that Derek's group was still orbiting the block. No drama, just a pivot. The light up there was softer anyway. Evan kissed my forehead, which made the photographer happy, and I felt my shoulders drop a half-inch. Down below, Derek posted a story about being iced out by rigidity, with a shot of our venue's sign. Jada screen-recorded it, then put her phone away. We didn't feed it. People confuse silence with weakness until silence ruins their script. Halfway through appetizers, Carla slipped me a quiet update. The bar crowd had thinned. 2 of Derek's guys tried a back entrance and hit the same wall. Also, a delivery had arrived at the desk. White box, no card. She asked how I wanted to handle it. There's a kind of bait wrapped in etiquette. If you open it, you're participating. If you display it, you're validating. I told her to set it in the office and log the time. We'd deal with it later. Boundaries don't have to be loud. They have to be consistent. Toast started. Evan's sister told the story of our first grocery run, how I alphabetized spices while he tried to freestyle dinner, and everyone laughed the way families do when they recognize a rhythm. I scanned the room, faces we chose, seats we assigned, the chorus we curated, and felt the day lock into place. If you've ever had to defend your joy from petty interference, you know this sensation, not triumph, just relief with a spine. The MC called us to the floor for our first dance. As the music rose, Carla's text flashed once on Jada's screen and then disappeared. Sidewalk clear. We stepped into the circle we made, and the noise outside the walls finally went quiet. Dinner settled the room even more than vows. Speeches landed, glasses clinked, and the DJ read the crowd like a nurse reading vitals. Adjust, don't announce. That's the secret of a protected day. It isn't loud, it's accurate. Without a stage, a saboteur becomes a bystander with sore feelings. If you've ever held a boundary, you know how quickly noise thins when no one feeds it. Between courses, Carla pulled me aside to the office. The white box waited on a chair like a polite problem. Inside were professionally printed place cards with unfamiliar names and a tent sign. Friend's table, Derek. No card, just a typed note. No hard feelings. Let people celebrate. That's how control hides, under the language of inclusion. It asks you to confuse generosity with authority. I photographed everything, emailed the pictures to myself, and handed the box back to Carla to store with incident notes. Evidence isn't vengeance. It's a way to stop your brain from rewriting what happened later. You, with your own life, might be tempted to toss it and move on. Moving on is easier when the facts are anchored. Memory is calmer when it doesn't have to argue. The reception kept its shape. Marco texted that Derek's group fizzled after a while and tabbed out. A few cousins danced like they'd been waiting years to be silly with no subplot hovering. Evan's uncle tried to request a ninth-inning karaoke moment. The DJ smiled and stayed on plan. That's another quiet truth. When the professionals don't improvise, you don't have to turn into security. You get to be a person in your own day. We cut cake, hugged the people who raised us, and waved goodnight to the last shuttle. Back at the hotel, I slid a single, friend's table, card into my comm folder and tossed the rest. Not as a trophy, more like a label for what we refused. The phone buzzed with a final unknown message I didn't open. I set it face down, climbed onto the bed in my slip, and let the quiet be earned. We woke to a pile of messages and a quiet room. The brunch downstairs felt like a deep breath. Coffee, eggs, the soft hum of relatives who'd finally relaxed. I skimmed my phone between hugs. Most notes were simple love. A few were stranger DMs repeating Derek's line about rigidity, like they'd borrowed the sentence with none of the context. That's a common move. People who dislike boundaries try to crowdsource embarrassment. If you've lived through it, you know the cure isn't debate. It's indifference with receipts. Carla emailed an incident summary before noon. Timestamps, the saved voicemail, photos of the box with a friend's table, cards. She wasn't fishing for thanks. She was closing her loop. Professionals like her make big days feel breathable. I filed everything in calm and added a short note to myself. Protected the room. No scenes. When your brain loves to replay, documentation is mercy. You don't have to relitigate what you can reread. Then Derek sent the pettiest curveball of the week. A payment request on Venmo for friend's table printing plus bar deposit, complete with a party emoji. It wasn't about money. It was an invitation back into the script. Attention is a currency. He was shaking a cup. I declined the request, screenshot it, and blocked him there too. After that, I wrote one final email, 2 sentences, no adjectives, telling him to stop contacting me, our guests, or our vendors. I CC'd Evan and Carla and archived the thread. People try to turn boundaries into conversation. Don't. Boundaries are decisions, not dialogues. Back at work 2 days later, a coworker asked how the wedding went, and I told her the truth without the subplot. Beautiful, on time, everyone fed, no drama worth repeating. That's the quiet rewrite you owe yourself. You don't center the one person who tried to audition for a role he didn't have. You don't hand him the headline. If you're tempted to vent it all, ask what you want more, relief or reinforcement. Sometimes, the fastest way out is a smaller story told on purpose. Evan and I booked a small lake cabin for a long weekend. Nothing flashy, just water and a stack of thank you notes to finish. Before we left, Marco texted a final update. Derek had stopped by the bar, paid his tab, and left a mumbled apology for any confusion. No grand gesture, just a late attempt to look tidy. I didn't reply. We weren't keeping score anymore. We packed, watered the plant by the window, and locked the door behind us. The day had held. The noise had stayed outside. Now came the part no one posts about, choosing what to carry forward and what to set down. At the cabin we did the small things that make a life. We wrote thank you notes at the kitchen table and took turns making coffee. Evan asked if I wanted to do anything about Derek, meaning lawyers or warnings. I told him no. The day had held. That was enough. I archived the calm folder, kept the incident summary in our email, and deleted the rest. You don't win these things by replaying them. You win by refusing to keep the stage lit. There's a way to talk about people like Derek that sounds grand, but it's simpler than that. Some folks can't bear endings. They reach for relevance the way others reach for a chair. They call it generosity or tradition, but it's fear of being ordinary. You can't fix that with grace notes. You fix it by choosing your room, your list, your tone. If you've ever faced this, you know the dignity isn't in a big speech. It's in small, consistent moves that leave no oxygen for the side plot. I kept one, friend's table, card in my bag for a day without knowing why. On a walk by the water, I looked at it again, then set it in the recycling bin by the cabin store. Not a ceremony, just housekeeping. The memory didn't vanish, but it stopped asking for updates. I texted Jada a photo of the lake and wrote, "We're good." She replied with a picture from the dance floor, my face mid-laugh, and the caption, "This is the headline." She was right. That's how you rewrite a week. You put the right image in the center and leave it there. Back in Chicago, we returned the suits, dropped off the bouquet to be pressed, and changed the wedding site to a simple thank you page. Carla's invoice came with a note. "Pleasure working with a clear plan." It read like a high five from another adult who understands that calm is built, not found. A mutual later said Derek had moved apartments. I nodded and let the information pass through without landing. Not everything has to mean something. Sometimes the most mature move is to stop translating. People think closure feels like a door slamming. It felt more like me driving to work the next week, parking in the employee lot, and walking in with my badge like any other day. I didn't erase what happened. I absorbed it and kept my shape. If you've ever protected a milestone, that's the muscle you learn. Hold the boundary, let the noise burn out, choose the smaller story on purpose. Our wedding was beautiful on time. Everyone fed, no scenes. The rest was an email thread we archived, and a card I recycled by a lake. Bittersweet, sure, but mostly, it was a clean line forward.